I want to get started as quickly as we can, mainly because this is, I think we're really blessed to have 6 really good speakers here today to talk about some of these issues. And as a result, I really kind of want to get going. And then I'll say this for each of the 6 speakers, which we'll introduce separately. But when we do that, I just want to let each of the speakers know that I hope they're all here, but there's one I'm not seeing yet. What I'll do is I'm going to sit right back there in the middle so that I'll be the timekeeper, so that when I start to go 3, 2, 1, we want to keep things on time. Now, notice that I didn't put anybody back there for me, so I can ramble on as long as I want. So very quickly.
We don't have to stay here.
Much of this you saw last month, so I'm going to go through this very quickly. If you recall, we talked about how the Annie E. Casey Foundation has got 16 key indicators that they measure nationally. And Georgia in the last year ranked number 43. High not being quite so good. You want to be number 1, number 2, and we're 43. Back when they first started doing this in late 80s, early 90s, we were somewhere around 48. Joey Mullins is here from the state, so I have a tendency sometimes, Joey, to make up numbers, so correct me.
No, you're pretty close on that.
Okay. We got down as good as I think somewhere around 39, 37. Okay. Now we're back up to number 43. That's not necessarily because Georgia's getting worse, it's because some of these other states are getting much better, much quicker. So I kind of want to go through these, and it's 4 areas, and I have to remember here, it's the economic well-being, education, health, family, and community. So those are the 4 areas. And each of our speakers has got some expertise in those, as well as some of the slides you're going to see here. If you recall, we talked last month about this generational poverty study that had been done locally in the Atlanta area, and 43% of female-headed households lived in poverty in 2011. But the key point I really want to raise here is without intervention, which is what we're all about, many of their children will never escape, and neither will their children. That's what we really have to focus on. I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly. Children living in poverty, you can see that Pickens County in 2011, 26% of our children were living in poverty. That's 1,668 children. You can see as well that the trend line is going up. And not wanting to get into politics too much, there's certain things going on that could make this even worse. We rank number 38 though in the state, because a lot of that real poverty in the state is down in the south. Free and reduced lunches, again the trend is slightly upward. 56% of our children are on free and reduced lunches.
Honey.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
What did we do? I'm giving you the whole presentation in one.
Okay, that's it. Any questions?
Sorry.
Now, we talked about the single-parent families. Pickens County has 16+%. Not quite so bad when you compare it to the state. You can see in the state we're ranked number 4. And actually in the United States, children living in single-parent families, 35%. So again, we're not quite as bad. This can be driven somewhat by the fact that we've got a lot of homes in, say, Big Canoe and Bent Tree, who are much better off. Okay. Here's a good news item. About 90% graduation rate now. And I didn't put a trend line up here, but Shelley, that must have been in the 50-60% range not that long ago, right? So at 90%, and we rank very high in the state. Okay. However, what we should still focus on is the fact that we've got 20% of our adult population still does not have a high school diploma or a GED. Here's an important one going back to that generational poverty. Babies born with to mothers with less than 12 years education. It is declining, but you can see that Pickens County ranks number 85 in the state, so we're at about the midpoint. But 54 children in 2011, or 22%, were born to single-parent families. Okay. Teen births, again, you can see that we're on a declining trend, but there was one blip back here in 2010 when we had 50, but we ranked number 61 in the state. Okay. Child abuse. Here's where we really start to show up very poorly within the state. We rank number 111, which would be in the third quartile. To me, I mean, no cases are really acceptable, but I said last month, the one thing that you can focus on a positive is at least we're looking, this is on a rate per 1,000. There are 38 cases, which makes it manageable if we start to look at these on a case-by-case basis. Child neglect.
Well, which one it wants to. I'm sorry, this is a new
Okay.
version.
Child neglect, again, in this case, we're 139th in the state. So here we're in the fourth quartile, so there's a lot of work to be done on child neglect. And one of the things that Liz Watson had mentioned to me the other day was, I think it's 80% of domestic violence can be directly correlated with child abuse and neglect, which, you know, I learn something new every day with these areas, and that was one that I was not aware of. I don't think we know enough about domestic violence, and something we'll be talking about in the coming months. The children involved in the, whoops.
You don't need to go back?
Yeah, go back for just a second. The one point I wanted to raise here is that while children, there's a declining trend for children involved in the Child Protective Services investigations, but the one thing that we've got a bad trend, an upward trend here on the need for foster care in the county. So that's something to pay attention to, is that trend which is going in the wrong direction. Okay. Substance abuse, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here. This can be a complicated chart. The only thing that I would really point out here is when you look at this school year, 2011-12 versus 2013, the one thing that stood out to me was the fact that we've got, and these are 10th graders who are saying that they're using these various substances, drugs and alcohol, is there's actually an increase from one school year to the next when you look at alcohol. It was 18.6 and now it's at 19.1. So that was one thing that I picked up just looking at this chart very quickly. Domestic violence, which Vicki VanDeilen is going to talk about later. The thing I would point out here is 22 women and children in shelters, 760 bed nights in those shelters for those 22. And the other thing was the hotline crisis calls, 375. This is over a 22-month period. Okay.
It clicks when it wants to.
Okay. Did we?
See what I need?
Okay. So we'll stay. So the challenge is to start to identify the families. We've got to start to talk about prevention, early intervention, and in some cases, you know, we've got the much more detail where you really have to get in and really help the families. But again, it goes one at a time. I want to just go into many of those other points too, those other bullets. Shelley's going to talk a little bit about it in her presentation. And if you remember, we had that, what was that called? The community, yeah, that was held over in the Board of Education. And she's got some the key points that were raised in that. This is that wagon wheel that we used last month that Jackie and I found. And the reason we want to do it is we look at all of these different issues, all of the agencies, all of you who are helping these people one at a time. How do we get them to the hub? And what is the hub so we can start to help them collectively? not an individual one-on-one agency basis, but collectively. And we're going to talk a little bit more today about the Resource Center and how we need to expand that. With that, how did I do, timekeeper? With that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Chairman of the County Commissioners here in Pickens County, Rob Jones.
Well, good morning and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I know it's, hopefully it's going to be a festive year this Christmas. I know that the subjects we're talking about I know could be depressing, but at least we as a group are trying to do something to correct the issues that we're having here in this county. Tom wanted me to kind of keep to the facts, and I'll try to keep it at a 10-minute. Kris done told me don't ramble on, so you slap me if I have to. But anyway, the data that we have here in Pickens County, to give you all an update, we're still looking at 29,426 people that are here in Pickens County total. That's by the 2010 U.S. Census, and that's what we have to go by for our grants and all. Population under 19 years of age is 21.5%, or 7,287 people. That's what we have. Persons living below the poverty level, I know you heard the percentages, I'm going to bring numbers out. 3,451 people living below the poverty level in Pickens County. Husband and wife family with children under the age of 18 is 2,397. Male household with children under the age of 18 are 207. And then female household with children under the age of 18 is 558. Those are the actual numbers that we've got here. Those can be brought up on the U.S. Census Bureau under quick facts. You can look that up for the neighboring counties that we've got here. We have tried since I've been in office since 2005. Needless to say that when I run for this office, I won't say oblivious, but I was really surprised at the facts of what we have with some of the individuals that we have in this county. And really, when you really get dwelling into it, it's kind of heartbreaking when you start looking at the overall details. But the judicial system and the Sheriff's Department are working very hard to reduce the number of cases of child abuse and child neglect. It seems to be that education of the parents, in which all of y'all are involved in, is real key to the issue. Over the years, we have seen that Pickens County, for the children here in Pickens County, don't have anything to do. Most of y'all knew that. Most of y'all, residents that have been here more than 12 years, understand the fact that the kids here under the age of 18, especially during summertime and after school's over, unless they get involved in some sort of school sport or school activities, don't have anything to do. And that has been the case ever since the early 70s. So henceforth, I did build a community center. We pulled it out of the SPLOST. I kind of jumped the gun on it to the fact that it was supposed to be at a later date. I was supposed to build the courthouse first before I built the community center. I don't care. I built the community center first, and then I worked on the courthouse. And that being said, that building has been open December for 2 years now. And that building has been booked up solid for that length of time. So, yeah, I have no regrets to that fact. And you would be surprised if you go down there, even during the weeknights. I mean, children are in that building using that facility, whether it's basketball, the 3 classrooms we got, the community area that we've got for lunches and suppers in there. That building has turned out pretty good.
Good for you, Rob.
Thank you. The recreation center, the expansion that we've done on the recreation center has helped with trying to get these kids something to do. The children's shelter, the ACS, Appalachian Children's Shelter behind us. There's another one I know they're finally getting hopefully for too long, getting some permits from the state for them to get that system activated. And also the partnership we have with the Boys and Girls Club has worked out very well for Pickens County, the Ludville area that they use down there at the small community center we got by the nursing home down there at Ludville. What we partner with them there at the rec center, and what they've done to keep the kids off. At least they're doing the homework now. That's the biggest thing. But what you have to remember is, everybody be real quiet. Larry Tony's coming in the door.
Hey, Larry.
I got up early for this.
20 after 8, I'm impressed. But we do have a lot going on for the children here in Pickens County. And I'm going to give my time away in case I get done a little early. I got up this morning, which I normally do, because I tried to call Larry at 4 o'clock and he won't answer his phone. But I get up around 4 or 5 o'clock every morning, and I was sitting there watching TV just for sake of information. I don't know if any of y'all saw it or not. Where a 6-year-old child gets to the sheriff's department for sexual harassment. Did y'all see that this morning?
Yes, where he kissed a little girl.
Kissed a little girl on the hand, and they got him for sexual harassment. Now, that's going to stay on that child's record for who knows. And he's out of school for 3 days, suspended. Something's going wrong with our communities to the fact that we're going to one extreme to the other. So I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that's been approaching pretty good is CLCP. John's handling a lot of that, and I'm not going to take any of his thunder away. But that has really been an asset to the fact that we are trying to get our adult population, at least give them a GED, get them educated where they can get a good job. Let me just put a few more numbers out here. One quick one that y'all need to understand. We are a county with 29,400 people. We have an unemployment rate still about 7.2 to 7.3% unemployment rate here in Pickens County. So if you just round it up to, say, 30,000 people, 7% unemployment rate, you got about 2,100 people that are out of a job. If the best you can do, even during good times, you're going to have at least 3.5% that, whether they're looking for a job or not, is still yet debatable, but that's what you're going to have on the books, no matter if it's 06, 07, or 08. So you got 4% that are actually going to go fall back into the workforce sooner or later. But we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in Northwest Georgia. So we've been very fortunate there. I'm going to more or less give way to the next one, unless somebody's got some quick questions they want to. I can field some questions right quick. I haven't got the finger yet. No, so I'm doing pretty good so far. Yes, ma'am.
You see the overall population pretty much so staying the same for the next few years?
What we saw, Sue, is back in 05, 06, 07, the people that are moving into this county are from the age of 45 years in age and older. We are not seeing the school age population, which is good on one way, detriment on the other. We, as most of y'all know, we're a Tier 4 county. There's 21 counties in the state that are Tier 4 county. Tier 4, what the state of Georgia does under the Georgia 1 grant and the Peach grant, is if you're classified as a Tier 4 county, that classifies you as a wealthy county. Now, don't construe my verbs wrong, because believe me, the paper does enough to do that anyway. But, you know, we have individuals in Bent Tree, Big Canoe, The Preserve, Hunter's Ridge, and believe it or not, on the west end of the county that got 10-acre farms, 12-acre farms, and 20-acre farms out there that are been blessed with the financials. What happens and why we get penalized for that is because the state looks at that and considers us a rich county when they do the census. So we are not eligible for a lot of grants that we should be getting to help the underprivileged in this county. But that's the fact, and we've tried to fight that issue over the years. But I made a mess. But things aren't as destitute as we think they are. Things are still picking up. Building permits have picked up. We have sold actually more water meters this last month than we did all of last year. So things are pretty well percolating on the inventory. Inventory we have on homes, spec homes and all are just about used up. So we have some couple individuals that are building spec homes again now in Pickens County. So that's what we're looking at the economic. So I get 3. Yes, sir.
We had the courthouse and we had the rec center. What's the next? Is there another major building project?
I hope not.
Over there, the library.
I'll get to her in a minute. The courthouse, I've got to get it paid off. If I live long enough, April of this coming year, I'll have the courthouse paid off. We'll owe about approximately $700,000 to $800,000 on the recreation center. We should have it paid off hopefully by the end of June. It'll be close. We'll have it pretty well paid off. As for the new SPLOST coming on board, we're looking at collecting somewhere between $26 to $30 million on the 6-year SPLOST. $11 million of that money is going to go to roads, infrastructure roads. We're going to have to work on the fire department, and then $2 million is going back to the library for expansion of the library. So we're pushing that along. That's really the only building that I foresee in the future is the library. Everything else is going to have to be infrastructure and trying to get it back up. About 2 minutes. Any other questions? What we got?
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Very informative. And now let me, from back here, introduce Shelley Cantrell, who is the attendance officer for Pickens County.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. This is a great crowd. I mean, wow, this is really amazing. I also want to thank you for whatever part you play in Pickens County in helping families and children. We're very blessed in this county that so many people come together, work together, especially me coming from the school system. I talk to other people in other systems and I hear how do y'all get this? How do y'all work and get all this stuff done? And I'm thinking, that's the blessing, is that we don't have to beg and go, and is that everybody comes together because we all have that one single thing in mind that we all keep in mind is our family and our children within Pickens County. I want to start off, I know Tom has told me I've got to make this thing quick. So I'm not a fast speaker because when I get started talking about family and children, it's hard for me to move fast because there's so many things that are near and dear to my heart. The biggest thing, schools in, don't be out. Just remember that is the big push. That is where we've been for the last, since 2004-05, since we started the attendance protocol committee. So that's one of the things that we continue to push in Pickens County. It is working. Jackie, you'll go to the next slide. The good news is that our graduation rate is now 90.50, which back in 2002 we were like at 52%. So we are making a big dent in the graduation rate thanks to Pickens High School, Mountain Education, and GED, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes. Look at the percent of students missing 15 or more absences, a decrease. We're at 4.1%, so we are really making a lot of progress there. I have to thank a lot of the agencies as well for helping us, the community, because you play a big part in helping to encourage those parents and and having the children in school. And I thank the parents too of Pickens County, all of our school systems working very hard, so we continue to work to try to decrease that number. Okay. Helping our students to graduate. We have three main people that I want to thank for the efforts. Pickens High School, of course, is working very hard, as you can see, the 90% graduation rate. We have a team down there that is called a Graduate First Team. And we meet, Whitney, our school social worker, and myself, we're part of that team. And we meet on a regular basis now, and we're looking at not only our seniors, but we're looking at students 9 through 12 that we meet on. And we make sure that we have a plan in place to make sure that those students are going to graduate. So that is something that we have started really looking at closely this year, is that we don't want any student to fall through the cracks. Mountain Education Center has been a big help to us. Since Mountain Education opened, I think this is our 4th year. Please remember, students that come to the Mountain Education Center are students who have been in other systems and are coming in. 67% of the students that come to Mountain Ed are at least 1 year, if not 2 years behind academically. So we have to, those obstacles we have to work with. The other thing is that our cohort graduation rate and versus the day school versus the night school is a little different. And with the day school, we have to look at students who actually come and graduate within that 4-year period. At Mountain Ed, now what they're doing is they're taking what's called a snapshot. And we're looking at the seniors that actually start, and the seniors, the number that starts versus the number that finished. In the last 2 years, we've actually seen good progress, 50% as far as the dropout rate that we're working at. 2011-12, we were looking at 41 graduates. This is just for the Pickens side. And then last year, we had 52 graduates. So every year, we're continuing to increase as far as the number of graduates. Right now, Mountain Education has approximately about 165 students enrolled. in the night school program. So it continues to, we're actually expanding a little bit. We're getting some room in the old auditorium building to kind of 3 more rooms that we're actually working to expand because the Mountain Education Center is getting so, lot more students and we have less room. So we're actually working to do a little expansion there.
Shelley,
Yes.
I asked you, 52% in 2002, I find that hard to believe.
Uh-huh.
We only graduated that many. Is that, can you help convince me more? I've lived here 35
Chris,
years
will
and my
you give me
kids
my
went through
chart?
school here.
Back in 2002, we had, it was actually we had 81 students. Oh, sorry. 2002, 81 students was the number of dropouts versus 8 now. So that was the actual dropout number.
Okay.
We went from 2002, it actually, well, actually that was 2001 too. 64.3% you're looking at versus the 90.5% if you're looking at the actual 2002.
Well, I know the dropout rate has gone well, and that's great. I just figured there was more than 52% of the people, students there, that only 52% graduated from high school.
No, when we were, back in 2001, it was, in the late 90s and 2001, it was, yeah, those are true numbers. That's correct. Yeah, we've really come a long way within the last 10 years. Okay, I see Tom motioning for me to go on. Okay, talk about the GED. 137 students have been enrolled in the GED Center this year. Out of those, 42 of those have actually completed their GED. We have 10 more that are actually in the process of working to finish their GED before the end of the year. So between Mountain Ed, you're looking at 52, and the 42 with the GED, so that's 94 more students, folks, that have received their education. So, between the 3 working here, we're really, that's great numbers. Parent support and resources. One of the key things I keep hearing is parent education with everybody that's been up talking. So I want to just kind of briefly go through here. This is different parent support and resources that we have helping our parents. One of the things, Jackie, if you could go on. Collaborative workshop, which Tom mentioned we had on September the 5th. This is where we had about 20 agencies come in and we talked about the different areas of concern within the community. Within the agencies, we gave each one a sticky note. You had 10 stickies you could go around, you could place on areas that you felt was the main concern. This was the 20 areas identified, rating them as far as the highest versus to the lowest. So as you can see, parenting skills was the number 1, dysfunctional families, child abuse and neglect, generational poverty, transportation, substance abuse. Jackie, you can keep going. Employment resources, parent education, mental health, single parents, teen pregnancy, family economic survival. And then we keep going on down. And again, this was the 20 agencies as far as what they felt like was the main concerns in the area. Next one, Jackie. Vision. One of the things that we've been looking at, and Tom and I have been talking about, is we have a resource center. In the resource center where it's located, which is a great place because we have CARES, we have Good Sam, and we have so many other resources that are around. We have the health department. But one of the things is that a vision that, in talking with the school system personnel, a lot of the parents that we talk to is that if we could expand the parent resource center that we have now into a larger center. One of the areas is that parents are, especially new to the county, is that they need one area that they can, one-stop shop, kind of where they can go and they can receive the resources, because they have an array of problems. It's usually not 1 or 2, it's usually an array of different problems. Parenting skills is one of the things that we're seeing that parents need help with. Educational opportunities. helping parents with the coping skills, helping parents find resources for special needs children. That's one of the things that our special education department is working with this year. Transportation is a biggie, folks. We have, especially in the afternoon, I know we have mats, but if we could do some kind of expansion for the evening program, we have several students right now at the Mountain Education Center cannot get to the Mountain Center because they have lost transportation. One young lady is 1.5 units away from graduation. She had been coming every night, not missed a single night, Monday through Thursday, 4 to 9. All of a sudden, from Thanksgiving break, we have not seen her. So, of course, that was a red flag. We've been trying to find her. We have located her, but she can't get to school. She doesn't have transportation. I am going
Senator
to.
Cares. We helped one or two of them now.
Okay, the problem is that she can't, she has no transportation to go to CARES. So I'm trying to work with that young lady because she has worked so hard to try to get her education, and I am not going to give up on this young lady. I'm going to find a way for her to get to the school and graduate because this is so important to her, and she has worked so hard, and she has overcome a lot of obstacles and difficulties in her life. So those are just some of the things. Parents are coming in. We see them every day. They have no jobs. They have 3 or 4 children. I said, where do you work? I don't work. You know, what have you done in the past? Well, I lost my job. They've moved in. We've got them under the homeless act because they're actually doubled up. Okay. Again, my big push, I guess, here today is that I would really like for us to focus on something that we could do to kind of help target more and help our parents. And I thank you for your time, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas and blessings to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shelley. Next up, we have Lieutenant Kris Stancil from Pickens County Sheriff's Department.
I know my math is sometimes off, but when he said that you had 6 really great speakers that are here, and I see 7 names, I really think I'm number 7 somewhere on there, 6 that were really great. And then
You're part of the 6.
I'm okay. As he said, I'm
You're the
I'm
6
Kris
that know what
Stancil.
you're talking about.
What I've got here today is a lot of different numbers. I'm going to go through some statistics on family violence, domestic violence in Pickens County. These are difficult numbers to come by. I didn't realize how difficult this was going to be to break down in the format that we're breaking them down today because our reporting system doesn't have a way to link these numbers together in the same fashion. I can sort all reports that were taken for family violence calls over whatever period of time, and it'll give me a total number, and it'll show me how many were cleared by arrest, what's active, but it doesn't break those down as to which ones involved a juvenile, which ones involved alcohol, which ones involved drugs, or any of those particular things that may have been key factors in gathering the data. So what I've done, and just to kind of explain where this data is coming from, is I've individually pulled every single report that came up during this calendar year, 2013, year to date through the 10th. And went through and physically looked at each report to see was there juvenile present, either as the offender, as the victim, or as a witness in the event, and was there alcohol or drugs that were indicated. Now, the alcohol typically shows up on a regular basis. Drugs sometimes, unless it's obvious or there's an arrest that's made that deals with the drugs, or if there's specific information that the deputy can prove that there's drugs that were involved, they indicate it there. A lot of times with drugs, they don't have any way of knowing. That probably is a lot higher than what these numbers are going to show, but these are the ones that were for sure factual in going through there. In 2013, to date, we've had 308 reports that are family violence related reports. This could be anything from a verbal dispute. Does not necessarily mean that an act of violence has occurred at that level. So when you see the cleared by arrest note, that explains a big part of that. Out of that 308, 95 of those have been cleared by arrest. 95 of those, which is 31% total, of those cases for 2013. There has been an arrest made, they're moving through the court system, or they've already been through the court system at this point in time. 28, which is 9%, are still actively being investigated. Those cases are still under active investigation. And then 60% were either unfounded, exceptionally cleared, or made as an inactive case, which sometimes requires a little bit of explanation. A lot of times there's just no evidence. There's no physical indication that violence has occurred. It could have just been a verbal argument between, husband and wife, and the kid called 911 and they show up and they can't prove anything that's taken place. And so that's a large category of those numbers. If there's any scanner junkies that like to listen to the radio, I kind of thought for a long time that the water department was giving out a scanner with water meters when you moved into Pickens County, because you're liable to call and they know you're there before you knew they were there. So, if you listen, you'll hear domestic violence calls called all the time. It's the signal 86 on the radio. So if you're ever around a law enforcement officer and you hear the radio, I would say on average, every average deputy will respond to about 6 per shift that you'll go to. It's called out as a domestic violence call. Those aren't all domestic violence related. They've lumped together pretty much every argument, every fight, everything they really don't have a category to put in, and that's what they call it over the radio. Now they typically will give better details as you're responding so that you know what you're walking into before you arrive. Our dispatchers do an incredible job with asking questions of people that really are hard to talk to over the telephone so that they can relay that information. But you're constantly exposed to these type of activities and in these homes. And out of these 308, 79 of those cases, which is 26%, a juvenile was present in that case. Now the juvenile could have been the offender. The juvenile in some of those cases were the offender. Sometimes the juvenile was the victim. I know when we went over the child abuse and child neglect and how we rank in the state, that is a problem that we've got in Pickens County. It's been a problem for years. I know Natalie and her crew and Liz and her crew at DFCS, they work just countless numbers of hours. I don't think anybody can understand exactly what they do in their offices on investigating these cases, along with the detectives from our office that are doing all they can to try to get to the bottom of what's, but we're all in a reactive mode, and that's the difficult part of once this has taken place, you're reacting to what's already happened. Working with children as victims are not always easy to get the information. Natalie's pretty incredible at sitting there and somehow pulling information out that you just can't imagine that she'd be able to do. But it's a difficult task to get those solved and cleared by arrest, because to get enough evidence for that to go to a courtroom environment where there's enough to be beyond a reasonable doubt that something occurred, you sometimes are not going to have enough from the statements of the child. The child is conflicted, the child loves their parents, it's their mom, it's their dad, regardless of what kind of parent they are. They're still their parent, and so it's a difficult number there. 81 of this 308 involved alcohol, which is another 26% of the cases. There was alcohol related. I would imagine there's probably a 5 to 10% increase in that if you were to get down to it. It's just that there's some people that wake up drinking moonshine and go to bed drinking moonshine, and it doesn't smell any different on their breath than what they normally would smell like. So unless there's some way of proving it, they don't indicate it on here. 32, which is 10% of those cases, involve drugs. Now that's the number that I think that you would really, if you could do a drug screen on every single one of these cases as it was taking place, would probably be significantly higher than where it's at. Especially with prescription drugs and so many other things that cause a different effect on each other. The one trend, and this can be a disturbing number when you take a look at this and go through, but the one trend when I go back and compare year to year the total number of domestic violence or family violence cases in Pickens County, as I said, in 2013, on December 10th, with 1 month really still remaining, we were at 308. In 2012, we had a total of 243. We had a 42% clearance rate that were cleared by arrest in 2012. In 2011, it was 156. With a 65% clearance by arrest rate. 2010 was 188 with a 46% clearance by arrest rate. We're seeing that trend go up as the economy goes down. What's odd about this, and I'm kind of the numbers geek in our office that they all give me a hard time, and call me every name you can call somebody to be mean, but I've just got to learn to wear that hat. When you watch this trend with family violence lifting up, we're watching our overall crime rate in Pickens County go down. And I think, a lot of factors involved. One, we've really worked hard with educating the deputies on indicating that if it is an act of family violence, the law requires a report be written. Even if you don't believe that it was family violence, even if you can't really prove it, you still have to write that report so that there's a follow-up that can go on in the future. And over the last 5 years since Sheriff Craig took office, that's been a constant education process. So we're seeing deputies that are much, much higher educated in gathering this information, in providing all the details. And that's one reason our clearance by arrest rate has gone down as our cases have gone up. They're documenting everything that meets the criteria for family violence. In 2011, when we had 156 with a real high clearance rate, a lot of those questionable calls may not have been documented in a family violence report. It may have just been written as a miscellaneous incident and never indicated to be family violence. So I always worry when you give a stat. I took statistics in college and learned that you can pretty much take a number and make it anything you want to make it. I mean, you can spin it, you watch during the campaign, and it's hilarious to watch them use the same two numbers and they'll both make it look like two completely different things. So I don't want you to think that we're trying to bend those numbers, but I want you to know that's where the raw material comes from. The problem with the 308, though, is 1 out of every 4, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 out of every 4 are reported. 3 out of 4 are not. It's something that generational poverty, I think, also falls under generational family violence. This is what my life's always looked like, and this is what it's always going to look like, and that's what Dad did, that's what my grandpa did. And so they don't report it. There's a stigma attached. The more you see male victims, the chances of a male victim calling 911 as he's being abused, and I've got a funny story, but I know he held up too, so I'll steer clear of that one. I had a really funny incident when I was a police officer.
Well, we can afford another minute, but it's really.
Well, I can give a good one. I show up on a call, and this is in the city of Valdosta, downtown. I'm a 21-year-old white kid working on Martin Luther King Boulevard in downtown Valdosta. I didn't fit in very well in my environment at all. And I got a call to a domestic violence center. And they didn't have a whole lot of information. It was very vague. It was very limited. I arrived and pulled up to a little shotgun shack house, and a poor, he looked like he was 80. He was really, I think, 62 whenever we did the final and got all his information. Sitting on his front porch. He didn't weigh 80 pounds. I mean, he was just sitting there, and you could tell he was sad. I mean, he was beat up. He was, bruised, battered, had blood on his arm. I mean, he was in bad shape. And so I walked up to him to find out what was going on, and he just kept saying, she didn't mean to. Well, about this time, his wife, who had to probably cross the 400-pound mark, I don't know for sure where the number would have been, just got out of the shower, completely stark naked, not a single stitch of clothing on, approaches me in the front yard of the house. I'm thinking this is not what you see every day. And she turns around and looks at him and just rears back and knocks him out. I mean, the guy physically was knocked out right in front of me. So I've got to act. I mean, I've got to arrest her. She just did this in front. So I'm trying to figure out what to grab. So as she throws me around the front yard for a while, I see my captain driving up, and I can see him the whole time we're rolling around in the yard. I'm in uniform, just getting my tail handed to me by this naked black pig who weighed about 5 times what I weighed, and she's just throwing me around the yard, and he's just falling out of his car laughing. And I saw him start to back out, and I thought, well, what is he doing? Well, I later found out he was turning to aim his camera at the scene to make sure he could show me what it looked like later. We finally got her handcuffed, and she wanted to go with a sheet. She didn't want to put clothes on. But by the time I left the jail, he was there to bond her out. He wanted her to be back home. He was there paying for a bond. And that's something we see so often. It's that generational issue that's been passed on, and it's still my husband, it's still my daddy, it's still whoever. They're bringing them back home, and so by the time it goes to court, they have no good witnesses for this to go through the court system. You see a lot of difficulty in getting a conviction because if nobody's there to testify what happened and they're supporting the offender, the courts really can't push that through a jury. And that's just a difficult way to go about it. So it's one of those areas we're fighting hard. We're looking at other ways we can do it and working and partnering with every group that we can to educate as many people as we can to try to follow the same trends you're seeing over and over again about educating parents. The hotline number, we've been giving out significant more deputies carrying that, so I think that's a reason for your spike in those calls as well. So I just thank you for giving me the chance.
The story was definitely worth it.
It was very entertaining, for sure.
Thank you, Kris.
You decided to go into ministry.
I changed groups.
Is that on YouTube? Have him talk about the juvenile court, and he is in court. So as a result, we have Vicki VanDeilen here. And Vicki is the executive director of the North Georgia Mountain Crisis Network.
Yes.
And
For
works
those of
with
you
the
that don't
judge.
know what that is, it is the shelter, the safe house for women of domestic violence and their children. We do serve men, but the men don't come into shelter. We make other arrangements for them. The numbers, of course, are low, like you said. But thank you. I mean, what a great talk to follow. You really drew the picture from law enforcement and the statistics, what family violence and domestic violence looks like on paper through the eyes of law enforcement, and they are the first responders. So they're critical in all of this. I know Judge Worcester would have many stories to follow, probably just as dynamic and funny as that one, because many of those cases do get into courts. And my goal today is twofold on behalf of Judge Worcester. First and foremost, to give you just a snapshot of what he sees in court. He is the chief juvenile court judge for the circuit. So this is his little tick sheet. So he counted cases in his court. And the top 3 things that he's seeing this year, I think truancy is number 1, and I think that follows Shelley's. And even though the numbers are rising for graduates and success in the school system, truancy still is a problem. And a lot of that will be linked to domestic violence, problems in the home, just the unsettled foundation of a family environment often just manifests itself in truancy and other juvenile delinquent behaviors. The second thing he sees most in regard to the juvenile population are traffic violations, which, with the license, first-time license, and just learning, and then just the surges that they all feel. I'm sure speeding is probably a big part of that, and just traffic infractions. So he does see a lot of that. And the third would be simple battery. And simple battery being, I don't know, maybe Lieutenant could define simple battery better than maybe I can, but is it mostly, it's contact, so it's fighting. But not with a weapon or anything like that. It's basically
Minor injuries.
minor injuries, schoolyard stuff, who knows. But those are the top 3 things that he's seeing in his court. The fourth I thought was interesting, just and it's typical of adolescents, just unruly. And I think those are probably parents calling, just feeling like they've lost control of a situation in the home, or maybe at school something happened. So unruly is number 4. So those are the things that he's primarily seeing in his courtroom. And there are some laws changing around, some juvenile codes. And so I think the face of children coming through the court maybe look different coming up in the next couple of years here. But the trends, I know you wanted to speak to trends, and like Lieutenant said, domestic violence is on the rise. Our relationship with Judge Worcester, like I said, it's twofold. He has his juvenile court, but our relationship, he wears another hat, and he hears all the petitions for temporary protective orders in the circuit. And if a survivor or a victim doesn't go and try to initiate a temporary protective order on their own, the only other agency that can do that is our agency for the circuit. We have a legal advocate on staff, and what she will do is hear the cases, hear the scenarios, and then family violence is a very definitive code. I mean, there are things that have to be present for the judge to hear a petition. And so what she'll do is, over the phone, make sure that these calls meet that criteria. If they do, then she will take that in front of a judge. So we work very closely with Judge Worcester in that capacity. We are the liaison and the agency for temporary protective orders for folks that don't go and do it on their own. There's a lot of reasons why you'd want us to help you do that. It doesn't cost you anything to go through our agency if we file the temporary protective order, and you have a true advocate. You have a team of folks that are trained and have a menu of services to help not only with the temporary protective order, but we also have many other services, emergency financial, things as simple and as important as changing their locks. Counseling, a really big piece. So our agency will do that, and it's for the Pickens area. I know you put some slides up for some of the stats, but currently there are 42 active right now. 42 active temporary protective orders just for the Pickens area. So the community is using the service, but 42 is a lot. So there were over 80 calls from the Pickens area to our office, but 42 are actually active. That means they've been taken in front of a judge, the petition has been heard, and a temporary protective order is in place, and a second hearing will be coming up, and there will be follow through with that. So 42 women have possession of a temporary protective order and are hoping that their safety will not be breached, and they do have the law to support them in that. So that's a Pickens staff with the temporary protective orders. But Judge, we text and call him. It is very quickly responded to. If we have an emergency, we can get a hold of him 24/7. We can get paperwork in front of him, and temporary protective orders can be put in place quickly. And that's really important for the first responders, because if something would happen, they need that paperwork to make an arrest and to really just see the parameters of that temporary protective order. So we work closely with Judge Worcester on that. And in his own words about that relationship, he just wanted me to share with you that our relationship with him is tightening up across the counties, because he does Fannin, Gilmer, and Pickens. But what you said, we are working to train first responders a little bit better, get more information in their hands. The first responders are the ones that basically have the chance to help us break the cycle. It takes possibly 7 times for a woman to finally leave her abuser. And maybe given the right information earlier on, maybe we could take that number down to 2 or 3 times. And a lot of that is just getting them information. So we've been working more closely, and the judge wanted that to be shared with law enforcement and the court system to get more trainings, which is part of the solution, and just get this information and awareness out there so that maybe we can interrupt this statistic that has been holding true nationally and even locally for many, many years, the 7 times. We'd like to take that and reduce that number. It's just, it's very hard for us in shelter to see the women come in and out, in and out. It's very hard for first responders to keep going to the same address. The frustration level, and I think what we, in talking to the judge, what we ask of the community, and part of the solution again, is have patience, because if you know this statistic, if you're educated on it, be patient with these situations. Most of them, many of them do come around, but the generational piece, it's hard to break the cycle for the first time. And that's what we're all trying to do collectively. But in domestic violence, just in the shelter piece, last year we sheltered 33 women and 30 children. Just this year, so we're not even through the year yet. We're already at, because our year, starts July. We count, our funders, it's July, so we're only 6 months into our year. So last 2012, July to June, we had 33 women in shelter and 30 children. Already 6 months into this year, we already have 27 women into shelter and their children. Currently in shelter, we are a 12-bed shelter. We've been full since April 1st. We currently have 6 children under the age of 3 and their mothers. We are serving 4 men outside of shelter. So those are the shelter numbers. Our outreach numbers are 165. So there are 165 people dealing with family violence issues in whether it's a temporary protective order, shelter, or just an outreach, meaning they need our services, but they do have a roof in a safe place that they can stay. And many of those outreach services are counseling, so which is a big piece. But just one case, when we talk about trends and how this impacts community. Just one case of domestic violence has its fingers in so many of the social service agencies in any community. The mental health, big piece, because of the counseling that really needs to happen for some of these dynamics and these patterns to be changed. Law enforcement, they're affected. Judicial, the court system, shelter and outreach, DFCS, and even the abandoned pets. We have to deal with the pets that they leave. There are specific shelters for animals. Some women refuse to come into shelter because they will not leave their dogs and their animals behind. So there are shelters for that. Just one case of domestic violence has its fingers in so many of the agencies, many of which are seated here. The children, we work closely with, the women that come in shelter, we get them, if they're open to it, the referrals to the ACC. The children have seen far too much. You gave, alarming numbers of 308. How many of those cases were witnessed by juveniles or they were participating in? I went through a CLIA law enforcement class, community law enforcement class, and the law enforcement that were there said one of the scariest calls to go out on is domestic violence. And one deputy gave the story that when he walked in, the scariest thing for him is when a 12-year-old has the gun to his father's head. And that, worst case scenario, obviously, for all the obvious reasons. But the first responders really are at risk, and without them, we can't even get the information to the women that need it most. So it's a critical piece, and the training piece, and the solution starts with the patients of the community to understand some of this, and our responsibility to help law enforcement with appropriate trainings that are very specific to law enforcement, lethality assessments, roll call trainings. There are many things in place. I wish we had more time to do all of these things, but there is a conversation about it, and I think that's the healthy movement forward for this county. But there are services for them, because domestic violence is on the rise, but I think the conversations are ongoing and they're sincere, and we have the full support of Judge Worcester, who takes the TPO and that whole process very, very seriously. There's just zero tolerance for any of it. But again, it does have to fall into certain parameters defined as family violence. So thank you for all of you for being a part of it, and please, through the holiday season, domestic violence cases spike. That's just part of it. That's part of it. Yes.
I have one question for both you and the lieutenant. I haven't heard anyone mention elder abuse.
As far as with us, elder abuse falls into that same category. It's under the family violence laws. So there were, and I don't want you to quote me on this because I may be off, but I want to say we had 2 specific incidents in 2013. It's reported is the difficult part until there is someone to report what's going on. Now, in both cases, they were quickly solved. There was a quick arrest made. There was, I would be willing to bet there's a lot higher number of that going on than what we see come through and
1 in 10
is reported
nationally.
Yeah.
Do they report that to the sheriff's department or to DFCS, or how does that work?
It can go either way. I know that there's multiple, but if they call 911 to file the report, it'll come through us. If they go through other avenues or through the court, it could go straight into DFCS to launch the investigation. If we received it, we would involve DFCS as well. So
doesn't investigate elder abuse. DFCS does not investigate.
No, but we found that out a couple years ago when I was in. I didn't know. That was the first case I ever ran into, and we called thinking that was who was going to go out and investigate.
And for the shelter, is there any facility available locally for medically compromised, abused elders?
Not to my knowledge. We take all victims of domestic violence, regardless of age. If they do come in, and we call Adult Protective Services, and that's part of their case management. So if it's identified, they come in under domestic violence. And I'm thinking we've only had 2 cases. One was her own brother, who she was living with, and the other was a same-sex partner. And so we just called Adult Protective Services, and they became part of our case management team. But as far as a medic, no. Thank you. Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, next up is Liz Watson, who is the Director of Pickens County, everybody knows Liz, but the Director of DFCS here in Pickens County.
Good morning, everybody. I wanted to kind of clarify the question about adult protective services. We do investigate those complaints and concerns. Our office specifically doesn't do it. It's a regional office, and it covers, probably 10 or 12 counties. But those are investigated by DFCS. It's just kind of it's under the umbrella of the Division of Aging within the DFCS system.
That's interesting. I had a question about that just recently, and I've been in public health 18 years, and I wasn't sure about that. So I know if I don't know, a lot of people
Right,
know about that.
right. Yeah, I think there is some misconception about that, who handles that. But I'm really happy and excited to be here. This is like a huge group. That's super exciting. We have had a lot of new initiatives at DFCS the last year. I mean, so many that my head's just popping constantly. It's just a little overwhelming. We'll start off though by first sharing our vision. Our vision is to support stronger families for stronger Georgia. And our mission is to strengthen Georgia by providing individuals and families access to services that would promote self-sufficiency, independence, and protect Georgia's vulnerable children and adults. One of the first things that we've experienced this last year is we've had a new, what they called a BOP plan. It stands for Business Operations Plan, and it had to do with the pay benefits, food stamps, Medicaid, TANF, and low-income Medicaid. So those services all went into a system of everything is computerized now. Most of our customers are not real excited about this because a lot of them don't have access to computers, don't know how to work a computer, and actually are just scared to death of the computer. So we do have 2 computers in our lobby that we will assist our customers with that. The whole idea behind trying to make it all computerized is just to get everything more centralized and more efficient. But we're having a problem with the efficiency part because, mainly because of technology issues. We have 3 different data systems, and they all have to work at the same time for us to process applications in the computer. So as always, technology is a godsend, and sometimes it's a curse. And so we've had a lot of those cursing days that have been somewhat challenging for my staff and for myself. So we're hoping our goal for the next year is to get those kinks worked out. This is such a radical thing for the state to go from basically a paperless agency. I always hear about government agencies are just paperwork, and it's true. But so again, we will continue to work on those technology issues. Now they've changed the name of BOP to Georgia One, and that's basically because the work is all of the regions and counties within the state. So we're hoping that, our next year that we can have more of a sustainability plan with regard to the technology. And they're wanting to make this technology to also go over to the child welfare side. And one of the goals, and is still in process of being implemented, is a call center, a child abuse 24/7 child abuse call center. And it was supposed to go up and running December 13th, but now they put the plan off, and we don't know when it'll happen. So when it does go into effect, that means that you can call into the 1-800 number and talk to somebody. They may be somewhere else in the state, but they will take the report and respond, and then send the report to the county to be assigned to either investigate or screen out. So like I said, we don't know when that's going to occur, but that's another goal of implementation for our next year. In the last year, we've gotten, this is starting from January of last year to the current date of yesterday. We have received and worked 268 investigations. That doesn't count cases that have been screened out and cases that we have worked in a family support case, which family support cases are cases that are worked in a way to assist the family, give resources to the family, put services in the home if needed, but not necessarily a child abuse investigation. It's just kind of a non-threatening way to assist a family. As far as trends, we're still seeing and continuing to see domestic violence on the rise, just like everybody has shared from law enforcement, from the Crisis Network. Most of the cases that we have open for confirmed and substantiated abuse are cases that have domestic violence as well as drugs. And we're seeing meth has made a comeback this last year again, and as well as, of course, the prescription drugs. So I would say 85% of our cases involve domestic violence and drugs. And we've had a lot of really serious DV cases this last year where, I mean, eventually some of these guys are going to kill their wives, girlfriends, or whatever. It's just, and it's just like what Kris talked about. It's that continuing pattern, family pattern, historical. They don't have the coping skills or the education or the desire. You know, it's just, they're intimidated and they're scared. They don't know how to start over. It's a very scary thing. But anyway, so we continue to see really young children exposed to domestic violence, which as they get older, they start to act out that aggression themselves, as I'm sure most of you all know. Right now, at the current time, we have 65 children in foster care, which is actually quite a bit because we only have 2 case managers working those cases. So we still are in need of foster homes, and another goal for the next year, of course, would be we have stepped up recruitment, and we're hoping to at least recruit 10 or 15 more foster homes in the next year. I don't know if I mentioned, we have like 15 foster homes right now, which cannot service 65 children. So the children are kind of spread out all over the place. And we hear that ACE, as I'm sure many of you are aware of, it's a temporary children's shelter, emergency shelter, and they've been trying to get licensed for many years. And I talked to the director yesterday, and I think they're almost to the point of being licensed. And even though the state doesn't encourage us to use those facilities because it's not a permanent home for children, it is just temporary. Because of the large sibling groups we've been removing, we will probably be using them. Just in a way to maintain children in the middle of the night when you pick up a sibling group of 4 or 6, just to try to keep them all together. One of the other last things that we have is the SRS. It stands for Safety Response System. And basically, that is a new way that we're looking at child maltreatment, and we're looking at imminent risk. They have to be at risk at that moment. And so it's going to be a little bit different the way we're going to process those kind of cases, and that program will not be implemented probably till the first of the year. But so we have a lot of initiatives, a lot of programs that just kind of make your head spin. But we're going to continue to strive and push forward. These are just really, really stressful times right now for all of us and for all agencies and all my community partners. I know are feeling the same stress. Do y'all have any questions? Oh, come on.
I just want to thank Liz and her folks for, they've been working very closely with us, helping us to adapt to the new things that are coming on board, and I want to thank Liz for
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, we have a strong community partnership with the school system because we're kind of all in this together.
I would just like to add one thing to Liz's. I had mentioned earlier, we got 29,100 people in Pickens County. That number has stayed static for 4 years. But what's happened in Pickens County, and Liz and Kris has kind of alluded to it, is our calls, our 911 calls, totally, we're running about 42,000 calls a year, 42,000 a year. As of October, we were up to 55,000.
Wow.
But the population has stayed the same. So yeah, there's something, undercurrent, whether it's economic, people getting on each other's nerves, or whatever it is, it's happening.
Yeah, sometimes you see like the domestic violence and the assaults and that kind of thing usually are exacerbated by the heat, like in the summertime. But I don't know, maybe some people in Pickens County are.
It's consistent this year.
Yeah.
Each month has been almost identical, which is the first year I could find a trend that looked like that.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
Liz, real quick, go through the requirements for becoming a foster parent. The class, is it a weekend thing now that you
Well,
can do? or-
yeah, typically we do a week, it's like a crash course for the whole weekend, like all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. You would have to go to a class. And
Just
then-
one weekend? Or is it, okay,
But it would be the whole weekend.
right.
And then we would come to your home, do a home evaluation, we have to do a criminal record check, we would do references, and basically you have to write your own autobiography about your life. And then there's questionnaires that you have to fill out. And then we have to make like 2 or 3 home visits to your home, interview your children, talk to the references, and so it takes several months to get approval. And I understand that not a lot of people want to be foster parents because there is a little bit of a risk, but it's an amazing experience. I couldn't do it myself because I know I'd get too attached, but I know there's some special people out there that would make good foster parents.
Where do you do the training at?
Usually at our office or at a church.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay, my pleasure.
And now we have Don Russell to kind of bring it all together. We're talking about, we're going to that wagon wheel now, we're talking about bringing all of this stuff into that hub.
Thank you. And I say, I probably won't say what you expect, but I won't say what I plan on saying. So I end by saying, and I have allergies year-round. I found out after running a thrift store for 14 years, I'm allergic to dirty clothes. Yeah, stick loud enough that you can hear me. When we talk about poverty, it brings strong emotions to me. I grew up in Appalachian poverty. Because of some circumstances, I learned to live beyond it, but I still have the culture deep within me. I now spend much of my time with people living in Appalachian poverty. It's come circle back, and something happened yesterday. I'm going to tell you about it for a reason. A little lady came in about so big. She was a grandmother, probably 40, 42, looked 60. She had 2 kids with her, one about 5, one about 7. Each of those pushing a bicycle. The bicycles were not in great shape. One of them was $3 and one was $4. The little girls were so excited about a bicycle. And the woman said, "Can you hold these till tomorrow?" And the little 7-year-old or 6-year-old said, "We only have $4. They were 7. She had her $4 and she was looking at change. Of course, I told them Merry Christmas, take them. That's not the point. The point is the emotions it brought back to me when I was a kid, a little older than that. I received my first bicycle. It was singular. Never had brakes in it. You don't get beyond your culture. Dr. John Malden would tell you there's generational patterns or cultures and issues that are both good and bad. I inherited through my parents patterns of hard-working Christian family. But I also inherited a lot of stigmas that I spent my whole life trying to get beyond. And you don't go beyond them, you learn to deal with them. Which gets around to what I spend my time now working with the 3,900 or somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 15% of our population that live in generational poverty or situational poverty. More recently, we've seen quite a few that are in situational poverty. That's how I grew up. Even though there's much of the stigma of poverty, you have a better opportunity to move beyond it. As we look at them, and I greatly applaud everything we're doing here. The school system is doing better jobs. The whole community is. We do a great job of 2 things. One, trying to help them out. And number 2, enabling them to keep dependent on the government. In my lifetime, I've seen the population go from very self-sustaining to greatly dependent on others. And I personally have been involved in perpetuating that. setting up free clothes, all kind of things. Don't know it's bad, don't know it's good, but it does bother me. We didn't have free clothes when I grew up from a thrift store. We did from churches. Much of the same things. Which gets me to the point. Based on all I've learned, all I've seen in my own personal life, I can tell you 3 times in my life, someone says something to me, they have no idea this happened, it changed my life. 3 times. One person, not a group, not a government agency, an individual, and in one instance, they were trying to help me, the other 2, they had no idea to help me. They said something. I think the real opportunity to make a difference, particularly with the children, is to provide hope. I was completely hopeless at 19 years old, even though I graduated in school. I was down almost on the bottom. I had no idea of ever going to college. I didn't know why I graduated except there wasn't anything else to do. And I was smart enough I could get by without studying. I never took a book home 4 years of high school. Even though many years later I went to college, I have some postgraduate work. I'm still a poor little kid growing up in poverty. That I won't go beyond. I learned to live in a different world, fairly satisfactory. Unless we provide hope to those that are hopeless. And that doesn't mean give them free clothes and groceries. That means give them something beyond. And my experience has shown the best way to possibly do that is not in a big classroom, that helps, but it's one-on-one. One positive, caring adult with one individual kid, perhaps a small group. Some examples of that would be a story that an individual told me 2 weeks ago of a young male in high school that he has been mentoring for 6 years. I know many cases like this. People tell me about this. There's a woman that I know for a long time. She's not able to do it anymore. She wasn't far beyond the poverty herself. She'd been with the same kid 5 years. Those kids learn something outside their home. My parents were hard-working Christian families. They were both raised very well because of the Depression. They lost it all. They never had hope after that. They never gave me hope. College was never mentioned. The idea of graduating, I did. I'm the only one in the family, but you look at a family that's in Habitat, been in several years. A daughter, a single mother with 3 children, that's now at Georgia Tech on a scholarship. Okay, someone gave her hope along the way. You look at the Boys and Girls, Boys and Girls Club is dear to my heart. And we are going to have a new facility next year. 23,000 square foot Boys and Girls Club with a teen center. Still need some money, but we won't build it. We give hope, but perhaps the best example of what I saw was several years ago when Floyd Hale went to the Boys and Girls Club every week and spent a couple of hours playing chess with the young men. I'm not sure either one of them knew how to play chess. That wasn't the thing was, the kid talked the way he listened. That kid picked up a little hope. So when we can get involved in such a way that a one-on-one, we can help a kid. And I wasn't here last month, but the generation of poverty study shows our time is much better spent. We work with the female side of the population, not the males. It makes complete sense to me. You can spend all your time, get an individual male graduate from high school, get a pretty decent job. That changes a little bit when you get a young lady that can go on and reach the point where she can make an income to support a family, to provide the values to the kids. And if you haven't seen that study, you need to read it. It makes a lot of sense. So I would suggest that anytime we have a chance to work one-on-one with an individual, it doesn't have to be in poverty. We've got a lot of kids that can use it. The more and more and more of that we can do will make a difference. I think y'all do an absolutely superb job. I'm glad to be a part of it, but I still have that little regret that I'm helping people continue to be dependent on others, because I was, and I love my thrift store clothes.
Can I chime in real quick? He was talking about the one-on-one. That's one thing in the night school program. Every full-time student does have an assigned mentor. So that, what we call them cabs, or caring adult in the building that comes in once a week and meets with all those students. So I agree with what Don says, having that one-on-one, that is a very, very important part. And we do see a lot of success with our mentors that come in to work with our night school students.
Don, I understand very well myself about the concern of helping people and being worried about that, but what I usually relate it to, and I would share with it, even though you may do this sometimes, we know we're protecting the children. We're helping them, and everybody wants to help the children. And that's what this organization itself is about.
Okay, wrapping it up will be, I think we need to applaud Ms. Jackie Childers for a beautiful meeting here today. All the tables, the decorations, get rid of these candy kisses, please. And the fact that we've got, what a great turnout, and I know she's made a lot of phone calls. So I thank her, she's done a phenomenal job.
I want to thank you all for coming today. I think it's great that you're able to participate in the collaborative and for taking the time to show up to the meetings. I want to, I'm really nervous. I'm sorry. I want to say that we, the Pickens County Family Connection, are working on a resource center, a community resource center, which is behind the thrift store and Beside Cares, and talking about hope and providing hope. And I think this is one of the things that we do. We provide hope for a lot of people, and this is one of our projects. You see people coming in there who need an education, or who need a job, or who need another resource other than any of those that I've mentioned, that need to be sent to the Good Samaritan, or that need mental health support. So I'm really happy to be working with that.
Jackie, could I comment?
Yes.
It's great the work that's going on there, but in relation to what you were talking to Shelley about the parenting thing, there's other times in the week that the resource center is not being used. I mean, it's only being used part of the time, so that's a facility that is possibly available to be used. Some other the hours it's not being used.
I think too, if we could have clarification on the hours, that would be great, because that way we can make note of that and get the information out to who it needs to go to.
Okay, and in January, actually, you're going to have the GED program is going to be in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, all mornings. So basically, there's going to be somebody at the community center all week, but part of the day. But that's a great thing for me. I think it's a community center, and we need the community in there. From all the things you've heard today, it brings me to the point of speakers and people and topics that you would like to hear and issues that you would like to hear about and to talk about in this upcoming year. And I would certainly encourage you to please let me know right now or later what you would like to talk about. You would talk about bullying as an issue, and so I'm very happy that in January we're going to have a couple of great speakers who are going to be talking to us about bullying as an issue, and I invite you to come and to bring your coworkers who you think are interested in that topic or who are affected by that topic. We will also have Mr. Dan Bellinger. Is it Dr. Bellinger? Yes. Who is going to be talking to us about marketing strategies, and that's in February. And that's very important to a lot of the agencies that are in this room today, because who does not need to promote their agency and who does not need to brand and market what they do and their services? So I encourage you to come there. But I am looking for suggestions for the rest of the year. One last thing, on another note, if you did not sign in or check off your name, and if you did not get a ticket to have a chance to go to Rocco's, please do so before the end of the meeting so that we may draw at the end. Yes?
I just have a quick question for Shelley. And Don kind of spoke to this too. Considering that with the new economy, most jobs will require much more than a high school education. How many AP classes are at Pickens High School, and I didn't hear what percent actually go on to higher education, to colleges and universities?
I don't have the exact numbers. I mean, I can get them.
Okay.
And Jackie, I can get them to Jackie, and Jackie can share those. I'll be happy to.
Because that's really, I mean, now that we're getting them through high school, let's get them through college.
Right.
And Vicki's not here anymore, right?
Yes, she's right there.
There you are. Vicki, I was wondering, my question for you was if you feel like the medical and mental health community in the area is adequately educated to identify and counsel when domestic abuse, and dentists too, because I bet broken teeth happen. Do you think they're adequately educated to recognize it and then counsel the victims when they come in?
I know the medical offices have their own protocols for identification of these things. Our responsibility is to be sure that they have the information they hand over if there's a disclosure, or if they feel that may be the case, but they're not disclosing, they can at least give them information, say, I'm not sure if this is what's going on. The counselors, we contract with counselors, and they're trauma-based counselors, so I think they're very adept and they're equipped to handle our clients and the demographic of them. But the medical and the dental, I don't know their own protocols for identification. I just know my responsibility to those offices is to be sure they have information, and we have a whole department dedicated to that prevention and outreach, that we, go out.
And I think maybe some education would be helpful, because I think that providers sometimes suspect,
Right.
but with adults particularly,
Right.
it's hard to know how to bring it up in a way that the victim might be open to.
Would be open to it. And that's an initiative for the new year, also getting into gynecology offices for some of the sexual assault identifications. So one of our initiatives and our agency goals for the new year is to get more into faith-based organizations and provide trainings, as well as medical, and I hadn't thought of dental, so thank you.
Well, thank you. So I encourage you to keep working together and to join one of Pickens County Family Connection 3 strategies. We have the Work Ready strategy, work development. This is where the resource center, the community resource center comes from. We're working with Thrive to 5, children from 0 to 5, and this is another one of our initiatives. and Greg and Deidre Mason are here from the Drug-Free Pickens, the Coalition for Drug-Free Pickens, where we promote no substance abuse or use. So thank you so much. And I think now we have a little time for announcements. Did you want to say something, Tom? Does anybody have an announcement they'd like to make? Yes, come on up.
I always have something to say, don't I?
Good.
My agency has received a grant. I'm with the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission Area Agency on Aging, and we have received a grant to train lay leaders in a course called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. We're looking for people who are interested in teaching this class. We'll train you, and then all you have to do is co-teach 2 classes a year. It's a pretty powerful class, and we're not talking about only physical disabilities. We're talking about mental, dementia, Alzheimer's. It's any sort of caregiving situation that people might want to get into. So if you're interested in becoming a lay leader and learning how to teach that class, get with Jackie, she'll get with me, and I'll hook you up with the application to take the training.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements at this time?
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yes.
Woodstock Church, Jasper, that's across from Hill City Elementary School, is having a kind of a food drive Saturday, where their goal is to try to feed 300 families. They've got boxes of food, and basically the families just have to show up Saturday, I think at 11 o'clock, and they're trying to feed 300 families. So if any of you in your organization know families that, you know, would have a need for this, please kind of spread the word.
What's the
Saturday at
location?
11 o'clock.
What's the location?
It's Woodstock Church, Jasper, which is a small church right across from Hill City Elementary School.
11 to what?
Just 11
Until
o'clock.
they run out.
I think, yeah.
Yes, Vicki?
Just on behalf of the shelter, we are, I think I mentioned earlier, we have 6 children under the age of 3. And the community has been very generous in the Christmas gifts for the kids. But shelter needs that have come up that we are having trouble keeping up with are basic needs like toilet paper, Scott towel, diapers, and wipes. We're just turning that number over and over and over, so it's becoming very costly. It looks like we're going to have a very bright Christmas at the shelter. Santa's coming on the 23rd. There's just been an outpouring of gifts for the children, but some of those basic needs that I think we don't think about have really just become nearly overwhelming. So if, you know, obviously you can't drop them at the shelter, but our hotline number is 706-632-8400. And if you ask for Julie Welch, she's the shelter facility manager, and she makes arrangements for pickup at a neutral location and brings it back to the shelter and make sure everything gets where it's supposed to be. But that would be a really great offering for the holiday. So thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Well, during the Thanksgiving holidays, CARES was able to give 330 turkeys and hens. Every family that came to us got one for Thanksgiving.
That's great. Wonderful. All right, who doesn't have a ticket?